We're going to talk today a little bit about learning and the move towards more purposeful, impactful learning. And we're going to be weaving it into also the concept of talent acquisition and how to use it as a way to really draw talent into your organization and modern learning in general. So I thought we'd start out with introductions and really tell you who we are, and then I'll tell you a little bit about Baker Tilly as a practice and what we do. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex to let us know who she is.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Burnett. I'm a staff consultant on the Human Capital Services team. I just joined the firm in 2015, so right out of college. I went to the University of Illinois. I studied management and marketing there. And a little bit about me, I'm originally from Chicago, and last month I recently actually just moved out to the East Coast, Washington, D.C., so a little change of pace, so I think it's been, Washington, D.C., love it. So yeah, I've been loving it so far.
That's great. Thanks, Alex. I'm Tracy Rossett-Fritcher. I'm a director in our Human Capital Services practice. I've been with Baker Tilly for about 3 years. I joined from Oracle. I was part of the Taleo acquisition, and prior to that, and I was a thought leader and part of the transformation practice within Oracle. And before that, my whole entire career is really that of a practitioner. So I've sat in a lot of the seats that the people that certainly Oracle is talking to about cloud and about HCM and the various pillars in the product. I've sat in that seat before. So really happy to be here. And one of my favorite parts of the suite, if you will, is learning. Also in talent acquisition, love that as well. But our practice in general, Baker Tilly is a systems implementer for Oracle, an SI for Oracle, and we're really only in the cloud space. So we've never worked within anything to do with on-premise, so we're not implementers of EBS or PeopleSoft. We have a lot of people in our practice who have worked in those technologies before, but have made the pivot to the cloud. And we did that on purpose because we really want to help organizations move through the change as the marketplace is quickly changing, and we believe cloud is absolutely the enabler to do that. So we'll tell some stories from our practice along the way, and we'll go ahead and we'll start. So one of the things that I think all of us have in common is that conversation around who's doing what for work. And we've probably never ever heard this quote before: I'm starting a new job and I don't want to learn anything, said no one ever. Because whenever you do start a new job, even if you've been in the exact same role at a specific company, if you're moving to a new company, you will learn something new. You will take on some new knowledge and actually have to do things a little bit differently. And there's many ways that can happen, but it certainly doesn't matter what type of industry you're in or what age you are in the workforce. There's learning with every single new job. And I think that one of the things that we forgot to mention at the front, but you probably figured out, so Alex is a millennial. And there's a lot of conversations in the marketplace around the whole concept of millennials, and there's so many of them, and how to engage them, and how they're different, and what to do differently in the marketplace. But there's a reason for all of that, and Alex is going to actually bring us through millennials, and we'll start to make some ties into learning and bring it all together. So Alex, tell us, who are the millennials?
So there's a lot of conversation about us in the workplace and what to do with us. So who are we? We're the largest generation yet. There's 2.5 billion of us worldwide and 80 million of us in America. So there's a lot of us out there, and we're kind of that focal point right now for HR professionals. We're between the age of 18 and 34 years old. We're full of optimism, we're energetic, we're really confident in ourselves. And we grew up with technology. We've never known a world without the internet or email, Google, Facebook, Snapchat. And we live technology-fueled lives. We've grown up with it.
And one of the things that I think that is important is really about why it matters, and what we've been talking about as you've done some research. So tell us why it matters.
Yeah. So it matters strictly what I said, 80 million of us in the American workforce. So today, as you can see in this graphic, a third of the American workforce right now is millennials. Over the next 15 years, we're going to grow up to 75% of the American workforce in 15 years. That makes us the most rapidly growing population today in America. And what that means also is, as millennials, you've probably heard this, we bounce jobs a lot. On average, by the time we're 26, we've held 6.2 jobs. That means when we graduate college, we're changing a job on average every year since we graduated. So what does that mean for recruiters and what Tracy said, talent acquisition? How do you retain us? How do you attract us to your organization and make us stay over that 1 year?
That's great. And one of the things that we talk about with organizations is how to do things differently to attract better talent that's in line with what your company is trying to do, as well as what are some of the things that you can do to retain your workers. And we all know that turnover has a cost. So why this matters to you and what it means to you is if you can blend in some ways to even stave off some of that churn, if you will, or even attract a worker who could stay just that much longer, and we're talking maybe even just 6 months longer or 7 or 8 months longer, you will see definitely results in your organization. So some of the things that to think about as that happens is think about, what the millennials want. One of the things that means a lot is they want to learn as much as they can, as quickly as they can, and they're very achievement oriented too. And I do remember in one of my past lives being in kind of a new hire onboarding class, and I actually at this time was running a section of global talent management for American Express, and so it was just my regular new hire training class. And there were also campus recruits in there, and on the first day, the morning of the first day, around 10 o'clock, like 2 of them rushed the presenters and said, "We'd like to get involved in these types of projects right now." And the presenter's like, "I'm not even your leader, I'm not the person you should be asking, but hey, take that energy, harness that energy, and talk to your boss once you actually start your job." So this was 2 hours into their tenure at Amex, so it really does make a difference in terms of how quickly they want to learn. And the whole not waiting around piece is, Alex and I did a ton of research for this. Okay, fine, Alex did a ton of research for this. But our hypothesis from the get-go really was, for the companies that are better to work for, as reviewed by Glassdoor or the top 25 companies to work for, do they actually include all of the developmental opportunities, all of the learning opportunities, all the ways that you could learn and develop in how they recruit, or don't they? So our supposition really was that the companies that are more desirable to work for, they do have this as part of their pull. It's stated, it's clear, and it's upfront. So learning and development is a top driver, and we'll talk recruitment driver, and we'll talk more about what we found out. But they are not just ways to grow in terms of the job. If you're a senior manager and you're growing and trying to get more skills to move to the next level, it's really not just professional growth, it's also growing personally and adding to your skill set to be a better worker and person in general. And we've heard so many stories of people saying that that is a key part to their development. And then the number one reason millennials actually have stated that they leave is lack of development or opportunities. It's just not happening quick enough. And it is really kind of against what so many people have thought. It's money, 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 money. But from this quote, we're finding out that it's not.
Yeah. And that was definitely an experience for me when I was going through and coming out of campus. A year and a half ago, I had 5 job opportunities coming out of college, some offering higher salaries than Baker Tilly. But for me, when I was looking at where I wanted to start my career at, it was Baker Tilly. It was somewhere where I could wear a lot of hats on my project teams. I could be client-facing immediately right out of school, have opportunities to speak at Open World today, a year in. Just that kind of opportunity really totally drove me to this job and forsake that higher salary because I'm going to learn so much more and so much more beneficial to my career right off if I came to this kind of organization. So you might be sitting there thinking, why millennials, did they just wake up one day and value learning development? Why, as a generation, do we care about this so much? And when I was creating this presentation, that was a question that I asked myself and kind of did some internal reflection. And I also reached out to a previous boss of mine who was the CHRO of a Fortune 500 company. He's also a former psychologist who specializes in generations in the workplace, and he kind of shed some insight in this situation. So we're going to take a little walk through history, and it all started with the baby boomers. So they're coming out of World War II. War is over, economy's good, business is good. So they developed, I'm going to work as hard as I can mentality. You know, they can make a lot of money. There's a lot of opportunity. But with that, they were the creator of the 60-hour work week. It completely shifted that dynamic of at home, and divorce rates were on the rise for the first time in history. Then baby boomers then gave birth to Generation X. Generation X, after watching their parents beat themselves up at work all the time, their parents got divorced, were latchkey kids, they became cynical about working family, which created them. They wanted to really rely on themselves. They valued their personal development. They valued that skill set that they were attaining, because when they left jobs or their job let them go, they still had that. Even if they didn't have their job, they had that skill set that they could carry on with. So then they gave birth to us, the Millennials. And after being latchkey parents themselves, they turned into, or latchkey kids themselves, they turned into helicopter parents. Always hovering, always mentoring and guiding their kids through every stage of life. And for us, that kind of changed our paradigm of adults and what authority was for us. It no longer was someone who made the rules. It was no longer that kind of authority. It was more like a coach, a mentor, someone who was going to be by our side and help us through every stage of life. So then, when we graduated college and came to the workplace, that's how we now viewed our bosses. They were the new helicopter parents. Their role was not really to tell us what to do, but to help us get there and help us move along. So it's really that social upbringing is the top reason that we value learning and development. Reason number 2, the college debt crisis. I'm sure you guys see this on the news all the time. Well, the average millennial graduates college $35,000 in debt from undergrad. So for us, we're not looking to rush back to higher education to get that MBA or that master's degree and accrue more debt. For us, we're still swimming in debt from undergrad. So we're trying to see how can we further our career, how can we move the needle forward for ourselves, but not accrue more debt. So we, in turn, look toward our job. Within our organizations, how can we use the opportunities that are provided to us to further ourselves better, that skill set. So we're looking for that mentoring, that career development, and that training internally in our jobs. And that's something I can actually personally relate to. On Monday, I paid my last college loan off. Best feeling ever. And for me, I'm not looking to go back to school anytime soon, but really more learning, using my job to train myself. And the last reason is our instant and limitless access to information. Like I said before, we've never known a world without the World Wide Web. We grew up with the immediate and limitless access on our phones, on our tablet, on the computer. And this really created a self-directed learning atmosphere for us. Whenever we had a question, we could just Google it. We could watch YouTube videos. There was always someone who could explain it to us that second that we wanted to know. For me, my sophomore year of college, I had a horrible math teacher, and I ended up teaching myself an entire semester of calculus from watching YouTube videos that a classmate told me about. Parents weren't happy about hearing that, but it definitely, the information's out there for us if we want to go out and seek it. And we took that always learning mentality to the workplace. And now we want to learn from what others have done. We want an LMS system that's user-generated and easily searchable, just like how we train ourselves and we learn outside of the workplace.
And one of the things that in the workplace we do talk about is, kind of the interchange of the terms of learning and training. And whatever age you are, and if you're in the workplace, you've probably had to take on some courses that were the required training, some type of compliance training, some type of regulatory training that your company needs to prove that needs to be done. And that certainly is part of the whole learning ecosystem, if you will, because those types of training courses, often are geared around safety and things to be operating within a company and being fiduciary, having fiduciary responsibility. So it's important, and that is part of what we're talking about because that does help a company be successful. But there's this whole other realm of learning in general and formal and informal opportunities. So as we were researching these best companies to work for and really finding out if our hypothesis was true, do companies that are higher up on the list, do they have a better learning and development culture? And the answer is an absolute resounding yes. We were actually frankly shocked. We thought we would find some mild correlation, and it's actually overwhelming. So here are some companies that, from Glassdoor, which we're all very familiar with Glassdoor. In 2016, these are some of the rankings that have how companies have fallen in there. So some really cool names up there, but there's also some newer names as well. And so I was thinking, if you're a newer company, maybe you just haven't had time to stand up learning as much. Maybe you don't have, an infrastructure to do it. And we found exactly the opposite. So people in, some of these newer names, the Airbnb or the Guidewire, for example, or Zillow, relatively new companies, new organizations, people were raving about the culture of learning within those organizations. Great people, challenging assignments, incredible place to build a career, definitely has learning opportunities. I like the first one, the best people, best culture, best training. So people are actually, when they're reviewing the company, talking about learning exactly and explicitly. So we were really happy to see that. So we thought, okay, let's take that further and look at these organizations and talk about what they might be explicitly saying. So here's Airbnb, and some of the quotes transfer over. But this other one that I love at the bottom, the upper management is very mindful of long-term growth and development. So the fact that someone is saying, look, my leadership knows that this is important for me, it is a pretty big translation in terms of what's happening in that organization. So then we thought, is this translating to how jobs are posted? Does it come through in the actual job description? And what's in the top 10 employers' job descriptions, what we're really finding is there's things that are all around what the employee will get out of the job. So it's career opportunities, it's mentoring, it's learning and development, and we're finding that as a pure theme. And we started to think about it, and we were all thinking, that's actually not that hard to do. Meaning you don't need to necessarily stand up an entirely new LMS to bring that into the conversation around who you are. And I think that we were feeling pretty good about this presentation and that there is this correlation. So we'll kind of move into the next one. So this one is really, again, talking about the job.
Yeah, totally. And I went through in researching for this presentation, I probably read over 100, 200 different job descriptions from those top 10 employers to see what were they putting in there to attract this top talent and pulling people into their organization. And I pulled out a couple lines from their actual job descriptions, and I mean, it just speaks for itself. We'll receive thorough training to kickstart your career. We'll provide, anticipate working in fast-paced, cross-functional projects that will challenge you to push the limits of innovation and renovation. I mean, if I was looking for a job, sign me up. These are awesome. Like, this would totally pull me in and make me feel like I'm gonna get a lot out of the job and also bring a lot to this organization.
And I think what is also funny is we really did think it had translated into the bottom 10 too, and unfortunately there have to be companies at the bottom 10 of Glassdoor, and we won't be listing those companies. So, but we did look at their job descriptions, and we looked at some of the feedback in Glassdoor, and it was thoroughly and frankly awful. It really, as a former HR professional, it made me cringe because someone works in those companies and someone's either creating that or feeling that. And so as we looked at the aggregate of these job descriptions, it was all about what the employee needed to bring to the job. You must, you need to, you have to, and granted, requirements in jobs are part of what we look for in organizations. But it was all about what the employee needed to bring in, not what was going to be part of what the employee was going to actually get. So, what the company will get, not what the candidate will get. So some of those phrases were really pretty demotivating, I guess you could say.
Totally. And they were just things that I thought that was the expectation. Like, it didn't need to be stated, it didn't need to be said, but the fact when I'm applying for a job and it says, expected to maintain excellent work habits, well, I hope I would be doing that in my job. I hope I would be bringing that to the organization. So as you're going through and you're looking at places like Glassdoor and candidates are applying, these are going to be demotivators. They're going to just move on to the next job that makes their future seem really bright and totally in their control.
I love the one of, have to complete the required training, because what you wouldn't complete the required training? So again, why does that even have to be mentioned? And I think that as someone who has run learning for pretty large organizations, it can be hard. I mean, I'll be it's not the easiest part of the organization to run. I think sometimes like the training and development or learning, you get a little bit of bad rap, you get a little bit of eye roll, like, oh, do we have to do this? But if you really think about some different conversations in the workplace, we hear a lot of these things in terms of barriers. And there's actually also so many ways to kind of get around them, and we'll touch on that. But some people are just like, hey, learning development is just about compliance anyway. We're not going to get excited about it. Or what we often hear, probably one of the top ones here, is our business just moves too quickly to care about this. We're too busy with the day-to-day to actually focus on it. We don't have time to do that. And then some organizations that still maybe haven't started their transformation yet, people just don't care about training, or look, here's the deal. All people care about is good pay, good benefits, and they want a good schedule, and that's it. Or the whole commonly misheld conception of people aren't leaving because there aren't developmental opportunities. So we try to change the conversation as we're working with organizations about how they modernize and how they actually engage in conversations with their workforce that are really giving people of all generations in the workplace more of what's important to them and more of what they want. So we're really in business because there's still conversations out like in the marketplace happening like this. And so what can you get if you actually do take some time to focus on this? So like if you were in a position to actually make some forward change in this area, what can you expect? You're going to have a better internal pipeline. You're going to have better people at the ready for next moves. As you're looking at who might be ready to move up and gearing them with the skill sets that are required for movement, you'll benefit from that from a lower recruiting cost. There's the engagement portion of it, so people are more engaged and are more likely to stay. You definitely have an ability to use everything that's happening, both formally and informally, to attract and retain your employees. And one thing that is maybe a little bit harder if you're at an organization that hasn't quite moved along the continuum, if there is some way for you to show what happens at each step in a person's career progression and how you move either up the ladder or across the lattice to gain new skills, that's something that is very motivating for people because they can continue to just want to grab more. And the other piece of it is, as you're collectively adding skills to your workforce, you're actually helping your workforce improve and optimize performance. And as the organization gets smarter and learns, you're driving more toward the success of your overall business. A smarter sales force, for example, or a smarter R&D force is just fueling your success in the marketplace. And I think that the whole concept of modern learning is something that probably has been around for probably the last like 3 to 4 years, and with the onset of the cloud and moving away from just training and compliance and required training. One of the things here it really talks about is opportunities of career and development are reasons that people are stating for staying with a company. And lack of opportunities is one of the drivers of people leaving. So I think that we've talked a lot about millennials and how millennials want more, but it's really generationally not that different.
Yeah, and SHRM had similar findings, as you can see from this graphic. They did a whole study on how people across different generations value career development and learning and training in their workforce. And as you can see here, 76% of baby boomers value career development within their role. Compared to the 88% of millennials, you can see that the difference isn't that much. And what this really goes to show is that learning is just a part of human nature. We value it as a civilization to continue at any age, to continue learning new skills and acquiring new beliefs. And it's also, a lot of health studies show that it fights off diseases like Alzheimer's and some of the more mental degenerative diseases by continuing learning different languages and different skill sets at work. It can offset that from a health benefit perspective. So
we didn't go into this for this presentation, but there's also a lot of correlations around learning and like directly correlating to happiness. As you have more opportunities in front of you, it actually makes you happier. And when you've had opportunities taken away from you, it definitely depresses, your level of satisfaction in life. So we didn't include that, but that is something that's very well proven out.
Yep.
And on this, again, this whole concept of modern learning, it's a shift. And it's really a shift from that traditional, like, on-the-job training. You need to go sit in this class to do this particular job. Trainings no longer solely exist to meet compliance and company-mandated policies. So the best training programs today provide rich learning experiences that are tapping into more than just the job. So they're tapping into what people want personally, what their interests are, and what their passions are. And as I talk to many people in the recruiting cycle, because I'm very active in the college recruiting, I didn't have a chance to interview Alex, but I totally would have hired her anyway. But we hear that just in terms of some of the questions actually bring out what people are very passionate about, and they're using the things that they feel super strongly about actually in their interview questions, and they might not even be work related. They could be outside of work, but they are examples, and they're using them to interview, to talk about how they would perform in a specific setting, this case within a consulting firm. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you found as you were, kind of looking at the marketplace for jobs?
Yeah, so in today's marketplace, there's a whole wide variety of what learning and development initiatives look like. Some of them really simple and some are super robust. So I'm going to kind of walk through the gamut that I've seen either personally experienced or have had friends go through also. And so the first one that we have really is like a welcome class, and that can be something that's done during onboarding, welcoming the employee to the organization, explaining what the organization does, what the employee's role will be, what kind of skill sets they're going to be able to bring out of the job. And that can be done at any level. That's something that I've experienced within each of my internships when I came to Baker Tilly, and it's super beneficial. It just kind of sets that foundation to really start your new job role. And then there's some of the more intense ones, like a mentorship program or a job shadow program. Those are both things that I have benefited from my internship. Just having someone, again, that kind of coaching role to help you throughout your career. And then the most robust one that I've seen is the rotational job program. When I graduated college, this was the hot job that everyone wanted across every industry: manufacturing, aerospace, professional services, real estate. Everyone wanted to get into these programs. And what they were is they were 2 to 3 year programs. You came in, and every 4 to 6 months, you changed to a new job role, a new department, a new function, and it could be marketing, finance, sales, just learning different areas of the business for the next 2 to 3 years at this company. And then at the end, when you graduate the program, you could decide what job role out of the ones you tried that you liked best that then you want to start your career off at. And this is really a two-way value proposition, these rotational programs. It benefits both the employee and the organization. From the employee standpoint, you're starting your career, 2 years in, and you just have such a better, bigger picture of what the organization's trying to achieve and how the different functions all talk to each other. And then from the organization's standpoint, you've got more strategic employees filling those roles, so you just got a more engaged workforce. It benefits both people in that situation. So.
I think, too, one of the other things that I've been thinking about is there's almost another one in here just that our specific organization started, and we just started what we call a full-on boot camp for the consulting hires that are new within our organization. And it's really a way to bring people into the firm within the consulting arm of Baker Tilly and give them all of not only the skills and sort of the understanding of what's the job about, how will you do your job, but you're actually learning through a group of people that are coming in and talking, and you have the ability to ask questions, because that is certainly one of the hallmarks of, as you're learning something new, if you have questions along the way, there needs to be that exchange in order for you to clarify and then take on new information. So again, a boot camp is another piece of that in terms of what could be offered as you're out of school. So as I said, I came from the Oracle ecosystem and have closely followed the whole concept and the whole pillar, if you will, of cloud learning. And followed learning just in general within the marketplace because I had to use so many of the tools around across my career. So some of the trends that we're seeing in modern learning, if you will, so aside from just that required training, is really more of the concept of micro-learning or burst learning. And I have found myself recently in so many different cases where I have needed one small piece of information or one small piece of a project to move forward. And if you don't do something on a regular basis, you sometimes kind of lose that freshness and lose that ability to just do it like your hands are tied behind your back. So this is the whole capability to go out and get what is needed at the time that it's needed, and it's immediate, it's right there, and it's just in a very, very small piece of it. So it's not the whole entire 3.5-hour video or not the whole entire e-learning course of how to write a sales proposal. It's actually just how do you format the verbiage around pricing, for example. So there are ways to go and retrieve that because other people in your organization have done that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over. So that is a huge trend, is that whole concept of just when you need it, being able to access it, and obviously other people have done it, so being able to learn from other people and having it right there at your fingertips. The next thing is contextualized learning. So we've all heard about training courses where people are like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I was in that training course, like none of it applied to me. This is completely the opposite of that. This is everything exactly applies to me. It is exactly for my skills, my skill set, my job, and what location I'm in. So if you operate with multiple locations, even within the US, this isn't even if you are in a global organization or not, but sometimes there are different local things that you need to know to operate and to actually be successful in your job. So this is being able to go in and having a whole dashboard of capabilities available to you, and it presents itself just for your job, for your role, and right there, so it's easily accessible. And again, this is also a way to search for user-generated content and look at, how can I find this? How can I get to what I need to do next? And then the last piece of it is really a way to mark yourself against a certain type of role. So contextually, if you're in a manager position and you want to move to a senior manager position, and as you've looked at all of the competencies around senior manager and then kind of have done an overview of your particular job capabilities, you can see all the areas that you might be missing. And like, ooh, I need to work a little bit more on decision making or leading with ambiguity. Great, those are things that you know that are gaps. Then what's available to you through your organization and what they have said, these are really good ways to fill those gaps through different learning things. It doesn't have to be a formalized, instructor-led training. It could be something very informal, and as a matter of fact, it could be users who have made the journey and have actually talked about things they did to fill their gaps and imparted their knowledge. So it's really all about that learning plan, if you will, to fit your skill or career development gaps. And so modern learning, kind of tying it back to Oracle and the whole reason we're here at Open World. So it definitely has a technology foundation, and the new Oracle Learning product in terms of the Oracle Learning Cloud, it's really all about making people more efficient problem solvers and critical thinkers. So it's really presenting training and learning in a way that means the most for that specific situation. So as we look at it, it's definitely mobile. So any type of learning or training that doesn't have mobility as a part of it, to me, is sunk from the get-go. And one of the things that the Learning Cloud was designed with was it was designed first, mobile first, rather than desktop first or rather than laptop first. So given that it has been created for a small screen environment, so either a phone or an iPad, it changes the way that learning is presented because of the pure real estate in the screen. So they knew that, but part of that was how do we help different organizations shape their content to go into the mobile setting. It's social. Part of learning is very, very, very social, and that's really how we were all brought up. And even if you're separated in different parts of the world or the country, you still can use the Learning Cloud in a way to bring people together. And there's a way to connect with others at various points in time around people's development. And there's a way to present people in learning forums and different forums of people who are trying to get to the next level. It's very flexible. So sometimes there could be one training course, and it could be delivered in a variety of modalities. It could be an e-learning course. It could be an in-person instructor-led training course. And it also could be something that is done, in small bursts in various settings, just in either of those two modalities. So it's really talking about the different methods to track and to do credit for the different training. And then what it's promised is you're really working on creating that learning-centric culture by having it on the dashboards of just where people are operating and how they're going into their various HCM system to find something. Given the fact that it's right there, people know that learning is a very important part of what they're doing. And then lastly, it's delivered. So you're able to, and I love this word, dynamically assign content based on job roles and department and organization. So instead of someone getting a report saying, Tracy needs to go through this training, you must schedule Tracy for this training. What it does is, as users and people in a company are moving from position A as a manager to a senior manager, once that change is made in the system, boom, they move into that next position, and what shows up on their contextualized learning dashboard, that next set of learning items that they need to do. I, as someone's manager, wouldn't have to go out and make sure and track that they're getting this type of required training. It is automatically happening, and it is automatically happening in the auto progression of that particular person in my workforce.
And we've seen those 5 factors of modern learning within one of our clients that actually just went live with learning a couple weeks ago, which is super exciting. So to give a little bit of bio of who this client was and what they looked like, they were in the commercial printing industry. They had 25,000 employees. They were based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they were a global company as well. So what their current pain points were in their current state is training was not organized by job role, as Tracy was talking about. It was really just whatever the manager decided that they wanted their direct reports to learn. And this really caused an issue because if I was everyone who's in, let's say, a printing manager role, wasn't receiving the same training. So those skill sets that were required for the role weren't being delivered to everyone. And also they had a lot of computer-based training, but when employees sat down to take it, if they had to walk away from it, they couldn't save where they were within the training and come back at a later time. And this caused so much employee frustration and a lot of increased training time, which was costly to the business because those employees weren't adding value during that training. So what they are able to achieve in their future state, they were able to instill Oracle Cloud Learn, and through that, with having that tech foundation, when employees started a new job role, they, like Tracy said, automatically assigned their learning plan. So these were the courses and training that they had to achieve to be successful in that role. And when they had completed that training and successfully been promoted, the LMS system would automatically sign them up for their next learning plan. So going back to those 5 forces of modern learning, it was promised, it was delivered, and it was very, very mobile. They could do it wherever they needed to.
And one of the things about this particular client is I have talked on a number of occasions to this client, and part of their offices are actually in one of their largest plants. Mm-hmm. And so you walk in to get to their offices, and it's a very, very, very long walk, and it's basically up on a catwalk, and you look into this, I mean, like bigger than you could possibly imagine, and it's actually a shop floor of huge printing presses running hundreds and hundreds of thousands of weekly magazines. So think of like a Sports Illustrated or something like that, and the how large those machines are. So some of that training is not just like, hey, we want you to learn how to adjust color on this particular digital press. Part of that training, frankly, is, and we don't want you to get your hand cut off. So it's safety training too. And so as you progress in that workforce and get promoted, you need to learn different parts of safety and making sure that then as a leader, you're able to keep the rest of your workforce safe. So it wasn't all just like, hey, I want to get some more skills. I mean, some of it was certainly crucial and certainly critical.
Definitely.
The next client success story actually came to me personally And it sort of broke all sorts of myths from the healthcare industry. So I had a baby a couple of months ago, and I ended up being in the hospital for a much longer period of time. I was in there for actually like 7 days, which is unheard of because most of the time you have a baby and you leave like 5 minutes later. But in this case, so I was there for a long time, and I had a lot of the nursing care seriously was unbelievable. We still talk about it, and my husband and I still talk about, like, we didn't even know that healthcare could be this amazing. And we actually chose a hospital because they had a specific, kind of delivery center, and it was really known in the last couple of years as the place, to have your baby. But before, probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, it was kind of known as like, yeah, it's a pretty good hospital. But there's been a lot of changes. So under kind of new leadership in terms of a chief nursing officer, she really talked about, and she talked to us many times about her team, because she was, kept coming in like, how's the care, how's everything going? And she said, you know what, everyone thinks that all nurses want are a great schedule, great benefits, and really, really over-the-top pay. And she goes, it's actually the opposite of that. What nurses want is the ability to continue to add to their skill set. It is what they crave more than anything, because you become more valuable as you get skills that are very, very hyper-specialized and very sub-specialized. And so not only are you a nurse, but you might be a pediatric nurse, and you might be a pediatric advanced life support nurse, or you could be a pediatric oncology nurse. So they just want to keep adding to the credentials that they have. And nurses, as she explained to me, are innately kind of learners at heart, because you're always faced with something else, and you're always faced with a different way to have to approach something. Because as we know, not every single illness or case is cookie cutter. If you've ever watched House, there's some really kind of weird things that can all happen. Well, that's nurses in action. So what she did was basically get the word out and say that she wanted to create part of the organization where you could rotate through and learn new skills. So she made that very, very purposeful, and she communicated it widely through the organization. So one night, I had a nurse that I hadn't seen, and I asked her, oh, you just haven't been on the schedule, have you been off? And she goes, actually, I work in a completely different part of this organization. I work in the part of the hospital where it's called the antepartum, which is people who have to be in the hospital for like 100 days before they deliver their baby. She goes, but I really wanted to experience labor and delivery, and I knew that this was a possibility over here. So I'm rotating through so that then I can be even more valuable to the organization, because I could actually now be scheduled over here. So it really does create that flexibility for the company as well. And it's something that I finally just asked her. I said, do you like working here? She goes, I would never leave here. She said so many other organizations sort of tighten down and the access to training and learning, and she goes, it's just the opposite here. And she said, and actually it tends to bring in more of the people who desire to deliver that amazing patient care, and it drives out the people, she's like, the ones who are crabby and not very nice and don't really care if they give you a good injection. She goes, those people just don't like it here, and they just leave. So it really creates a culture of what that hospital was trying to do. So we've talked a lot today, and we've probably said some things that have started to get you thinking about what you can do in your own organization. Certainly you can go out and probably purchase Oracle Learning Cloud if you haven't already, but sometimes that takes a little longer. There's a whole building a business case thing, the whole ROI return. But there are things that you can do today to really make your organizations, be more benefit more from learning. And Alex is going to walk through two of them.
Yep. So the first one is really, recruiting focus. So list items that candidates will learn in your job descriptions, like we saw in those top 10 companies. Put in those things that the candidate's going to get out of this new job, but when they come in, you'll be surprised by how much top talent you guys bring in. The second one is socialize all types of learning throughout your organization. So like Tracy said, not all of us are going to go out tomorrow and purchase a new LMS system, but within your sphere of influence, within your direct reports, within your peers, kind of establish that learning culture and reach out and try to provide that training that you can, or just those good little tidbits of knowledge that you can pass along to other people, and that will kind of disseminate throughout your organization.
And this next one is build your own learning and development culture. I had a really large team when I led global recruitment for Best Buy, and there were a lot of things that were changing in the organization. We were standing up a shared services model. And so I really recognized quickly that we were going to have to continue to build on what we knew. And I highlighted that at every single huddle that we had together for my both large team and my executive team. And every time we had a formal team meeting, just really talking about how someone may have shown someone else about how to do something and make a process more efficient. And we would actually have people share little tiny bits of knowledge that they learned to forward the fact that we really were trying to make even our just own department more of a learning-focused culture. And then the last thing is you get more attention about what you generate buzz about. And I think it's really important to ask people about what they're learning and kind of continue and foster that conversation. And if you can, just get really purposeful about going out and getting people's understanding about what they're getting in terms of learning and development. What do you find that is great about how you develop in this company? What's been your favorite path to learning, and how have you gained more skills here? And take those quotes and get permission to use them and actually post them at various points on your website so people can read and say, there's opportunity there. And again, many of the things are way more informal than formal. Someone's probably not going to talk about I took this really great class on navigating through organizational change. It's more or less talking about what people are getting in the moment for their job and how they're learning on the job and what kind of culture is being created with coworkers and with leaders. So these are just 4 ideas we had in terms of what you can actually impact today so you can feel like you can take away and do things differently. So I'll pause there and just, I think Alex and I probably have a couple minutes, maybe just 2 or 3, to take some questions, if anyone had any questions or comments. I'm sorry, yeah.
What are the significant detractors from being able to do this? What gets in the way?
It's funny. I think that we do talk to various people who have a lot of things standing in their way. Sometimes there is a huge technology piece of it in terms of look, we are tracking training through spreadsheets right now, and that is a very hard and manual process and very people and labor intensive. So sometimes just the actual running of the business, the way that it has to be run with compliance training, does get in the way of how can we focus on some of these other pieces. So that is something that definitely gets in the way, and there's ways to take things off of that, but it sure is a barrier. We have those conversations all the time. So good question. Well, thanks everyone. So appreciate your time, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the conference. And if you're going to the concert tonight, enjoy Sting and Gwen Stefani. Thanks.